This is the Radio Button Network. And this is the new Ace at Large podcast. Now, your host, Ace.
I would like to begin this week's Ace at Large podcast by pointing out, if you're watching on the YouTube video, which you all should be watching on the YouTube video because Todd does a phenomenal job of putting it all together, but I am wearing a super sweet Headbangers Bald hoodie today that I just wanted to get on somewhere for somebody to see it because I'm super proud of it. That aside, now we'll get to the business of being involved with this week's edition of Ace at Large. Look, here are facts. We are grieving. We are coping. We are going through something, whatever that is. We are fighting every day to get over whatever it is that we are experiencing. We. Individually, it could be me. It's easy to say me, and in the process, get lost in what we're going through and forget about the people who are helping us. What about them? Yes, we're going through a lot. Yes, we're experiencing a lot. And I've said it before, just about the simple fact that you're here, you are not alone. But what is our responsibility to those who are helping us? What is our responsibility to them as much as to ourselves? See if we can find some answers next.
There's more of the new Ace at Large podcast next. Welcome back to the new Ace at Large podcast.
How are you doing? How are things? How are you feeling? Doing okay? These are questions that we experience often when we are trying to work through whatever difficulties that we're facing in life. And it's easy to get lost in the what I'm going through thing. And I hate that. It's natural at times to just get lost in the battle that we are fighting. Whatever that battle might be, it doesn't make any difference. You can get completely caught up in that. We're constantly in our own heads, lost in thought, fighting a silent battle. And we forget that there are other people around us who are trying to help. They are just trying to help. So what do we owe them? What is our responsibility to them? Well, turns out we owe them a lot. How do we help those who are trying to help us, which helps ourselves in the process? Sounds kind of convoluted, but think about it. You get so caught up in what you're dealing with. For me, the death of my daughter, grieving the death of my daughter and dealing with life as it changes. And there's a business aspect that goes with that. If you're going through a divorce, you get caught up in this monumental failure in life. Whether it's your fault or not, whatever the reason doesn't matter. It's a monumental failure in life. At least it feels that way. And you're left not only trying to pick up the pieces, but there's a business aspect of what you're going through, your personal business, putting your life together, simple things, changing the light bill over. It's commonly referred to as the electricity bill, but I'm from the South. I call it the light bill. Those types of things have to be taken care of, little things. And you just get so caught up in that. You forget about those people who are trying to help. So let's think about for a minute, as I've tried to do lately, what is our responsibility to the people who are trying to help us? Now, a few thoughts before we get started. Remember, I am not a therapist, but I have been through a lot of therapy. Remember that. These are just my thoughts, my ideas from my perspective. Okay? So for the people who are trying to help us, what do we do? Number one, we show appreciation. We thank them for the help that they are offering. I'm big on intentions. That way I try to remember that, hey, if this didn't go well or someone does something to try to help me and I'm thinking, what made them think that was going to be helpful? I have to always remind myself, what were their intentions? Their intentions were good. So even though it might not have made any sense, they were trying to help. So you're not going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes. So will they. So even if they aren't in a moment doing what you really need, they're trying because they're in new territory as well. You know, it's always said, let's take grief, for example. People grieve in different ways. And one of the things that I've learned going through therapy, and again, grief, I'm not just talking about the death of someone. Divorce is a whole grief process in and of itself. And When you go through that, people grieve in different ways. And especially with something like death or divorce, people are always asking you, how are you doing? What can I do to help? And sometimes the tendency is there to lash out because you may be angry at the world, or you may be carrying some type of bitterness from the fact that your relationship has ended. But these people are trying to help you. Their intentions are good. You're going to make mistakes. So will they. They may be trying to help you in some way, and it doesn't go like you would like, or it's something you don't want their help with or don't need. But remember, just as there is no proper way to grieve because everyone grieves differently, they can't know what you are feeling. When my daughter died, my wife was amazing throughout that process. But she would always point out, hey, look, I know I don't know what you are experiencing, so just help me along the way. Let me know what you need for me to help you. And that was a tremendous help. So just show appreciation to them, a little appreciation for what they are doing, for the assistance they are offering, for their good intentions. A little appreciation goes a long, long way. Number 2, for what we owe people who are helping us through our process. Number 2, talk to them. I've mentioned this a lot on the Ace at Large podcast, but to me, and I think everybody says this, and I think one of the reasons that people go to therapy is it's a safe place, and therapy is a safe place to just get stuff out. There is something about saying the words, sharing your thoughts, expressing yourself to someone. It's like exhaling and pushing these thoughts and ideas out of your body. So when someone is trying to help you through a difficult situation, expressing our feelings in a very calm manner, talking, not only does it help them understand what we're experiencing and what we're going through, it helps them understand how they can help, which makes their assistance more effective, which makes it better for us, and it makes it better for them, and it makes everything a little bit easier. It helps them understand what we are feeling and experiencing, which helps them understand how they can help us. The key is that helps them feel like they are genuinely assisting us and their efforts are not in vain. And that's huge. Sharing our experiences makes them feel like they are helping because they are. It helps them understand how to help and how to be effective, and that makes them feel better about what they're doing. Talking to them helps them understand what we need, which also allows them to understand what we don't need. And that prevents further conflict. And that's huge, huge, because the last thing you want when you're dealing with a situation in life, whatever that battle may be that you're fighting, the last thing you want is any additional conflict. No matter how you feel, you don't want added conflict because you, me, we are going through enough turmoil in our hearts and in our heads anyway. You and I, going through whatever it is we're going through, are battling something every single day. Quietly, quite often. All by yourself. The last thing you want is added conflict, added stress, because we've got enough. So, talking to them helps them understand what we are experiencing, helps them understand how to help, helps them understand what to do, and almost as importantly, what not to do. Okay, so what do we do for those who are helping us? Number 3, share the good things they have done to help with others. Some of the best advice I've ever heard about marriage, and I've talked about this before, came at a wedding. And I know Amanda's tired of hearing about it, and a lot of people around me are tired of hearing about it, but I was just in awe of what great advice this was. At a wedding, a friend of mine, while toasting his daughter, said the best thing he could say was, never say anything negative about your spouse in public. I was like, wow, what a What a great piece of advice. That is super important. But saying how they have helped you, them hearing you express to other people how they've helped you, makes them feel appreciated, makes them feel important, lets them know that when you say something to them, you're not just doing lip service when you say thank you, that it genuinely impacts their lives in a positive way. It also helps them see how they can be more helpful because you've provided a good example to someone else. And to give an example, if I've gotten a little messed up here, if Amanda and I are somewhere and I am telling Todd, who produces the Ace at Large podcast visually, man, Amanda did this for me the other day and it was so cool. It made me feel so good. It was such a lift on the day that I was having a bad day. What have I done? She has heard me express to someone else, A, she did something that was great for me that helped. And B, it lets her know that it was so good and so important and so special that I like telling other people about it. So she knows what works and that it's much appreciated. That means those types of things will become more frequent, which is good for me and good for her because it lessens the burden somewhat. It only makes sense. I think sharing the good things people have done to help you with other people is very important because it does let them know that what they're doing is important and appreciated and effective. Number 4, do your best for them. This seems like the easiest thing, but it's probably the hardest because, like we said before, you, me, we're in a battle daily in your own mind. You're in a battle daily in your own heart. Well, guess what? So are they. Because your loved ones are experiencing the same thing that you are. Whether it's your husband, your wife, your kids, your mom, your dad, your friends, your family, your coworkers, they know you're going through something difficult and traumatic. And they are there to help. They deserve your best because you deserve your best. And trust me, I know the drill. There are days that you just want to pull the covers up. Just not today, man. Not today. I'm just going to lay here in this bed. And that's okay. It's okay to hide away sometimes. That's needed sometimes. But one of the things we've talked the most about is we got to make things better for ourselves and show them I'm trying, because that lets them know their efforts are not in vain. Show them you are trying. They need that. They need to see that, or else they begin to feel that their efforts to help you are hopeless. You know what happens then? They quit trying to help. And then your support system breaks down. And then a bad situation becomes worse. And quite often that's when conflict sets in. And again, as we said a minute ago, that's the last thing you want is additional conflict in life. That's when relationships fall apart. You think you're lonely now? Think about when those relationships fall apart and you've got nobody to turn to, nobody to talk to, nobody to offer assistance because you weren't doing your very best for them. And you're not perfect. It's not going to happen every day. Some days you're not going to feel up to it. But it's got to be a once in a while thing. Remember, we talked about it last week. Bad moments, not bad days. You do your best. They deserve your best effort. How often, and I don't know the stat, but I know it's quite often after the death of a child, especially a young child, that couples end up getting divorced a few years down the road because they just can't seem to find a way to work through what they're dealing with. Now, again, I'm not a therapist. I'm not an expert, but I would think a lot of that has to do with the fact that people grieve in different ways. And what one person needs is not what the other person needs. And there begins to be some conflict there because they're going through the same thing, but they can't understand each other. And next thing you know, they're being torn apart. And they reach a point where they justifiably, in many cases, just need a change and to get away and start over and start fresh. And that to me is super sad when a bad situation becomes worse because relationships fall apart because we can't deal with our situation. They deserve your best effort. They understand you're in a battle and they want to be right there in the trenches battling with you. But as I said, they need to see that you are making that effort. They need to see that you are trying, or else the situation begins to look hopeless to them. And that's when they stop trying to help. And that's when it all falls apart. And finally, when you make a mistake, and we all do, just say, hey, I'm sorry. Own up to it immediately if possible. Take the blame when you're to blame. Quite often, they may be doing what you want. You may not have communicated exactly how you want it done, and the process doesn't work out, and you lash out. That's not fair. That's not right. That's someone trying to help you. And better communication would have made it easier for them to do exactly what you want. And that's when you say, hey, I'm just having a bad day, man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm dealing with some stuff today. And they understand that. Because if you don't, the conflict just keeps going. And again, we've talked about it a lot. When it comes to grief, and grief accounts for so many different things. You know, I grieved the loss of my marriage. I grieved the loss of my daughter. Quite often, people grieve the loss of a job. It's all different for different people. There's no right way or wrong way to do any of this stuff. But what does happen is we all make mistakes going through this, whatever it is we're going through. Take the blame when you're to blame. It shows effort. It shows understanding. It shows that you appreciate them. It shows them that you are trying. It shows them that you appreciate having a teammate. And we all need teammates. So it's pretty simple. What is our responsibility to those people who are trying to help us? Number one, show appreciation. Number two, talk to them. Express yourself to them to help them understand how they can be more effective. Number three, share the good things they've done to help you with other people so that they know they really are appreciated. And they hear you telling people the good things they've done for you so they know to do more of that. Number four, do your very best for them. They need to see you trying, or else they find the situation hopeless, and that's when they give up trying to help you, and it all falls apart. And finally, when you make a mistake, and again, we all will, just say, hey, I'm sorry. Because that shows that you're making an effort. That shows that you appreciate them. And that shows that you appreciate having them as a teammate. We've covered, a lot of ground in the past few weeks on the Ace at Large podcast. So where are we going next? Well, it turns out that is up to you. I'll explain in a second.
There's more of the new Ace at Large podcast next. Welcome back to the new Ace at Large podcast.
Hey, this is important stuff, I think. I got to be honest with you. I feel like every week I come here and I try to just share something with you that's super personal and something that I think might be of assistance. And quite often it comes from mistakes that I have made and me taking a moment to examine my mistakes and things that I have gone through in life. And so I hope that you're finding it helpful and effective. Sometimes I feel like it's great. Sometimes I feel like it's okay. But I hope it's something that you are able to use in your day-to-day life with whatever it is that you're experiencing. And that's key. Where are we going to go with the Ace at Large podcast? How's the Ace at Large podcast going to change? How are we going to keep helping each other every week? Well, it starts with you, I think, and your stories. I'd like to share your stories, your experiences. I want your triumphs or how you're coping. I want to hear more, and I've gotten some great stories so far, and people are super nice, and I thank you so much for that. and I've thought about compiling some of them and sharing different things that people are going through, but I would like to know more about how you are working through it, or little things that you found along the way that are helpful for whatever it is that you are experiencing these days and what you're going through. And that doesn't matter whether it's drugs, alcohol, death of a family member, divorce, whatever it may be, just the general anxiety of the year that is 2021 now and life in these days. I would love to know more about how you're coping, how you're dealing with things. So if you have any ideas, questions, comments, I want to hear from you. On Facebook, it's David Ace Cannon. On Twitter and Instagram, it's at Ace at Large. Shoot me a comment, an idea, anything you'd like to share. If there's something you would like to hear more about on the Ace at Large podcast, I would love to hear from you. I've got some pretty cool things lined up, nothing concrete, but some interesting guests coming up the next couple of weeks that have good stories to share. One, a story of overcoming a not so great beginning in life for someone who is clearly triumphing now. And another is a member of the radio family who reached out to me following the death of my daughter, who experienced a very similar tragedy. And I'm hoping that she's willing to come on and share her story and how she's worked through this stuff. She's got some great insights. I don't know her. I've never met her. She was just nice enough to reach out to me on Twitter one day and share some ideas and thoughts. And it's been very helpful. So there's a lot going on, a lot working as we move forward. But again, any ideas, any questions, any comments, just the fact that you're hearing this, please hit me up. Facebook, it's David Ace Cannon. Twitter and Instagram, it's at Ace at Large, ACEATLARGE. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please comment, give it a thumbs up. And I hope that everybody will go check out the YouTube podcast, because Todd does a great job of putting the visuals together with this. But remember, more than anything else, remember this. As I leave you with every week, I wish I could tell you who said this. I don't know. I just saw it on a meme of all places, but it really hit home with me. One day, you will tell your story of how you've overcome what you're going through now, and it will become someone else's survival guide. And what could be better than that? I look forward to hearing from you. I'll see you next week.
This is the new Ace at Large podcast. The new Ace at Large podcast will be back next Thursday.